Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. Today we are going to be having a look at the last vehicle from the aviation side of the pasta developers for April 2020, and the reason why I wanted to kind of keep this one by because it is a really interesting and kind of unique design, and I'm sure we'll see it at some point when it comes to War Thunder in some form, but of course it is the Sud-Ouest SO.6020 Espadon from the French. It's a very interesting machine, and a bunch of different variants were built. Whether the armaments will be up for debate or not is another question. But generally, it is something which is another one of those fantastic French designs which came out generally after the war. Let's get started. The Espadon story starts pretty much at the end of the 1940s, where the French aeronautics was starting more or less from zero after the war. Faced with strong political will, the Air Force was trying to catch up with the English and the Americans at the time, and therefore many tests and also research was carried out during this period from the end of the Second World War to 1960. Equipped mainly with foreign aircraft, manufactured or not under license, such as the Mistral copy of the Vampire de Havilland, France wanted to revive its aeronautics industry to overcome this dependence on foreign devices. Thus was born a promising vehicle, but will have, unfortunately, no complete, finished product that went into service. This was the SO.6020 Espadon. By 1946, the Air Force had issued a fact sheet and specifications for a jet fighter, capable of interception and interdiction missions, replacing all piston-engined fighters, which the reactor itself or the engine had dethroned so quickly. The Mustang and the Spitfire left by the Allies could no longer compete with the new jets, even as tensions in Indochina demanded a quick response from the city. In 1946, no French apparatus nor no French engine could make it possible to answer this so ambitious sheet of demands. But behind, the state also wanted to stimulate research in new areas. A contract was awarded to a cell builder, nationalized since the Great Nationalizations of 1936, the SNCASO, the National Society of Aeronautical Construction of the Southwest, the ancestor of the aerospace and by descent of EADS. To further encourage competition, a second contract was awarded to Dassault Aviation. If Dassault was content with the Formula All Classic of the Hurricane, with straight wings, a wide air intake in the front, with an engine in the back, the SNCASO embarked on a much more radical and ambitious project, the SO.6020. The 6020 presented itself as a narrow and tall aircraft, with a very fine wing bolted to the fuselage. In return, it contained no fuel tank. The propulsion side of things, the vehicle was powered by a Rolls-Royce Nene engine, the NENE. The engine was not powered by an air intake in the front, but two gills located under the belly of the fuselage. The landing gear was a tricycle train, and the main gear was fixed under the wings, but folded into a housing inside the fuselage. And the fuselage, which had to hold the fuel, the engine, and also the electronic equipment, without forgetting the pilot, had some space limitations. Between the power of the NEN and everything that had to be shipped, everything was very much a compromise when it came to SNCASO. Equipped with the engine, the Mach 100 variant, with 2.2 tons of thrust, the first aircraft would make its maiden flight on the 12th of November 1948. They found some promising aspects. The Air Force ordered two other prototypes, including a derivative device equipped for air combat, a total of two SO.6020s and one SO.6025. The aircraft would be officially called the Espadon for this occasion. So there were many modifications which were made during the different versions, Basically, the original SO.6020 vehicle before, being rebuilt into the O2. The O2 was designed from the elements of the O1. This would become the successful 21 version, then the 26 version. The O3 would become the 25 after the addition of the SEPR rocket engine to it, which was kind of interesting. So there was only really 2 aircraft with a total of 5 different versions over the years of their testing. If the aircraft was flying very well in level flight, it was largely undermotorized compared to the Dassault Hurricane, which would leave it well behind. Taking into account the lessons that they'd learned, the SO.6020 was dismantled as said and was put together into the O2 variant. It would gain lateral air intakes and 2 engine marbre at the end of the wings and an increased drift for more efficiency. Other modifications would transform it into the 6021. This gave it a lightened structure, reduced cockpit, and also some different servo controls for the machine, so different electrics. The other machine, the SO.6025, would be modified at the drift to reduce weight of 700 kilos compared to the 6020, and would be added, and the rocket engine would be added of SEPR, which used fueline and nitric acid, which would be kept in isolated tanks, both of which were obviously quite bad for you. Despite the power gain from takeoff, the Swordfish still could not compete with the Hurricane from Dassault that would be retained by the Air Force. This meant that the vehicle was cancelled in 1951. Despite the program's end, the 3 aircraft participated in the flight test centers with several ejection seats or onboard system tests, as well as the development of engines such as the Gabizo or the Mabore. But the absence of spare parts made maintenance very problematic for them, and all of the vehicles were removed from flight in January of 1956. Also, I note that André Turcat, at the controls of the SO.6021, would be the first to cross the sound barrier level aboard a French plane in the 15th of December 1953, thanks to the addition of the rocket engine, the SEPR. The last prototype, which was the O3, which became the SO.6025, was not scrapped, but it was seen as pretty cumbersome and pretty useless. The device was boned of all that it could serve, so it was just stripped of all of its parts. And also, unfortunately, the prototype was abandoned on a field on a shooting range, so probably around 1958. And in 1971, the carcass was recovered by the Association of Ancient Wings in Alsace before returning to the south in 1987. They integrated into the collection of the Ailes Alsace in Toulouse, where the vehicle still is today. Stored in several places, it was also partially reassembled in 2009, giving it a little bit of a look at what it would look like. But luckily, we have a bunch of pictures when it comes to the vehicle itself. So this thing, or at least the 21 version, was mounting the Rolls-Royce NEN engine, the turbojet one, and it could go pretty quickly with a maximum speed of 967 kilometers an hour with 2.5 hours of endurance. The guns it had on it were 4 30mm and 4 12.7mm, so pretty juicy for a vehicle. This thing is very much a War Thunder vehicle. So what I mean by this is War Thunder really likes prototypes which are completely ridiculous and make absolutely no sense, and generally they kind of overperform in the game. This is going to be one of those if it ever gets into the game. It's got an insanely powerful engine, it's got an insanely powerful set of guns, but obviously at the same time when it comes to actually, real life, it didn't work. It was still worse than what else was around. So in War Thunder, it'll be grand though. It'll work extremely well. A very interesting aircraft, definitely one that would be cool to see for France, and I'm sure we'll see it at some point in the future. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time. I'd just like to thank Merciless Reaper, Jerry Provolt, Mega Dino King, Professor X1718, Orange Tail, Sakoshi Tiger, Teddy, John Ryman, Universe, Eugens Terry, Ambrosius McClellan, Daniel Stanton, Martinez, Moxie, B. Young, and Derek R., Barine, Lafouche, and Samuel Slick for supporting the channel.